Chaos. Woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning, chilling with coffee mugs, me and coffee chugs, talking education all across the nation, pushing boundaries, thinking innovation. Chaos.
Hello, everyone. How you doing? Welcome to another episode on Living on the Edge of Chaos podcast. This is Aaron, a.k.a. Coffee Chug, and I was just talking with the guest for this episode of how excited I am, how sometimes the world puts people together, and you're like, how have we not connected before? And as I was prepping for this show, I'm like, man, this guy, I am excited to hear his story and his ideas because I think we have a lot in common. So I'm here today with a gentleman named John Camp. And John, I'm going to go on a limb here, just knowing my audience, who is mostly K-12 educators, probably hasn't come across your work, but I have no doubt they are going to want to learn more about you. So let's start off with that. John, first, welcome to the show, and let's kick off with who are you, what do you do, and what in the world do you got going on?
Sounds great, Aaron. First, thank you so much for being here. I live in the chaos, so I'm super happy to be part of this. And I actually go by Camp. I don't go by John.
Okay, got it.
Professionally, I go by Camp. So that's a good way to get to know me first.
Yeah.
So I'm entering my 31st year in education, and I'm a public school kid, but for some reason, I've only taught in independent schools my whole career. And right now, I'm super pumped to be part of a startup school. We're heading into year 5, a school called New England Innovation Academy. It's in Marlborough, Massachusetts. I'm the head of teaching and learning. I also teach humanities because one thing that's important for me is to do the work that I ask the people I supervise to do. So I still love teaching, and that's part of my role as well. And so I used to joke with students, someday when I open my own school, these are the progressive things we'll do. And this is the closest I'll ever get to it. So being a founding member of this school and helping build a school to be relevant and future focused is like challenging work, but also super exciting work. So I'm happy to talk more about it today.
I love that. And I want to get into, I was reading on some of your mantras and just some of the things that you have talked about and written about. But before we get into there, you talked about how you've taken this plunge and taken this new opportunity with this startup school. Talk to me a little bit, because I think it's going to be a through line through everything that you share. Like, you've been in education for quite some time. You've taken this shift. Tell me about the story. Tell me about your mindset to make that change. And the reason I'm asking this is there's so many of us that I think we're being pulled in lots of directions. There's so many different initiatives. All these things that we know are in education. And at the end of the day, so many of us know what's best for kids, and we're so scared to make a small little change. And you have done a big change. And so tell me about that story, that journey to move into action and actually do it.
Yeah, great question. And I'm glad you said that about sometimes making that decision to make the move. And sort of one of the things that I've really grown as to be my biggest advice I give to anybody is just have the courage to try to make the change, whether it's really small or really big. Always thinking about students at the center and in changing this education paradigm, and particularly in the United States, that needs to be changed. I'm just going to say it. So,
Yep.
I know we all are in different districts and different types of schools and everything else, but any type of change you can make that's going to be relevant and better for students, I really think having the courage to do that is important. But basically, throughout my career, I've been, arguably the most progressive educator at any school I've been at. Always thinking about things differently, trying to think of how we can do things more. Definitely the more progressive mindset for not just relying on old trends, but what are new trends that work or don't work, and try them out. I'm definitely willing to fail forward, those types of things. So that mindset has always been part of my gig, that to have that type of mentality. And so again, to be able to come to a school and have all those things be at play every day has been pretty exciting. So that's the one thing I will say as a sort of a caveat, but also an invitation to listeners, is that I know some of the things I'm going to say. People who are in huge districts or big schools or public schools, things like that, are going to be like, oh, we can't do that where we're at, or that's going to be too difficult. And I definitely have the liberty as being at an independent school that's new, like I can try a lot of stuff. So I would say, rather than say, oh, we can't do that, like some of the little threads that I might say are starting points, or things like, hey, maybe we can try that on some little level. Or happy to reach out to me and say, did that really work? Should we gas that idea or anything like that? So yeah, because I think that's really important. I again, as a public school kid, and my kids go to public school, but I've only taught in private school. I understand that whole, there's different dimensions that we live in this educational environment. But really, we're all in it for the same things, with students at the center and trying to get them to harness the teaching and learning practices that will make them the best people they can be.
Yeah, and I want to unpack that some more, but I think one thing that I want to hear you talk more about, because I think you hit on something really important, right? We do all work in different school systems, settings, types, public, private, charter. The list can go on and on depending where you're at. There's all sorts of modalities. So as you're thinking through, your human-centered design, I know I want to talk to you about your ruckus maker
Sure.
identity and mentality. What are some of these things that you think are these to you, your philosophy and vision are like these universal skills or mindsets or competencies that we want all kids to have? And I mean, I look at it from your lens, but I think it's important to identify this because someone might be going like, where is he going with this? Right. And
Yeah.
so I think this is important because I think sometimes we do lose sight that I don't think we lose sight that we're all in it for the same thing, but I think we lose sight that we're all striving for our kids to have similar circumstances to be ready for this world when they graduate from whatever that is.
Yeah, and I think kids being ready for the world is the critical way to view it. That school is an important element in that journey, but it's not, life isn't like school. Like, you don't go through life going from one class to another class to another class. What are the skills that are transferable that you can teach in school, where that then can be, I say this all the time. So we have a competency-based assessment system, and a good batch of our competencies go across the school. So you can tag it in math, you can tag it in humanities, you can tag it in science, in Innovation Studio, which is a required course for us here at our school. And the idea is that if more of us around the building are tapping into those skills, then a student understands that these skills don't just live in math, don't just live in humanities, and they're ones that actually problem solving you need to do in a relationship, that you need to do in a job interview, that you need to do when you're on the phone with customer service. So all those types of things, I really feel like those types of things, like, yes, it's super important that the particular content in certain subject areas and the skills that go into those, but also really looking at those through a lens of like, what are the other skills that can be applied in school and used as sort of training ground for what we all face, which is real life.
Hmm. Yeah, you talked about, how life isn't how sometimes school is dictated by a schedule from we move from class to class. And something that I've been really trying to wrap my head around more is I read a book by Anne Laura Lecomte, who also runs Nest Labs, and she's a neuroscientist, but she talks a lot about how we keep trying to put these linear systems into a nonlinear world. And this is something that has just been like etched in my brain when it comes to like education, that my own children, and yet and the schools that I work for and the teachers that I try to support, like we keep trying to put like this linear ecosystems into everything, and we wonder why we don't see necessarily the change that we want. And so as you're talking about that, I'm like, yes, like how do we build more of these ecosystems in education that are non-linear? I mean, still building competencies and skills, but in a way that does move and groove with the kids on their journey, because it does all look and feel different for everybody that's involved. And so I like how you brought that to light there.
Yeah, that's an amazing quotation and concept. The linear path we follow in a nonlinear world, and I'm a, like I'll be honest, I'm blown away that students can go through a day and go to 4 or 5 different classes where the teacher is going to be super passionate and talking about working on these different things for like 60 minutes, and you go to another one, another teacher's doing that same thing. Like I don't progress through my day that way. Like these kids are teenagers, so I really think like being mind having a lens on their world and like what their world is like that is linear but also wild when you think about what a student actually does during the day. So and again, like in terms of the future of education and the linear nonlinear thing, I think that's something that will needs to get blown up eventually, right? And obviously AI and some of the cool things that AI can do can help contribute to that, but we need the courage to try them and to experiment and think about the world the way you just described.
Yeah. So how do you model that? How do you live that? I mean, I've seen that you describe yourself as a ruckus maker, and you are trying. And I think this is what we're trying to get kids to do, right? We don't want them to be passive. These kind of like passive vessels where we just fill up their cup and you move on down the checkout line. And I don't think anybody really wants that. I think sometimes the systems kind of maybe unintentionally create this type of environment, but I don't think people are going, yes, let's do that. So how have you moved into like modeling and living by that, so that it also then ebbs and flows like in the schools that you work and support and lead, and the staff that you have, because it's one thing to say it, it's another thing to do it, and so we've got to model that vision, that action, that energy. How have you got yourself to that place where you're like, I'm not afraid to do it? I mean, there's always a little bit of fear, but I mean, like
Yeah.
actually moving it into action, because I think that is like the ultimate like stopping point for so many people.
Yeah, and I think in education, like students particularly, they want to see adults who are thinking that way and doing those things. So one thing I think that's important, it's back to the courage thing, is when you want to make change or thinking about things, you definitely want to find people like people around you who want to do that as well. Because students, I think, they'll jump on board. So other educators who are willing to do it, like you and me talking right now, like awesome, like we're connected now, we can keep this conversation going. Um, so overall, just that, and I, in terms of like how that works, I think being in the present, like you got to think about the future, obviously, but being in the present, like what the students in front of me today, what do they need? The
Mm.
school today, what does the school need, and how can we be adaptive and flexible for that? One of my favorite quotations is, "If you don't like something, change it, and if you can't change it, change the way you think about it." Which I think
Ooh,
is
I
really
like that.
important. It's helped me a lot. Be positive, like, okay, I really want to change this, and like, oh, I'm not going to be able to do it. So, okay, let me change how I view it, and hopefully with a positive spin, and then I can move on to other things. That sort of way. So, I'm a big believer that that sort of positive mindset about change, surrounding yourself with people who want to get on board with that, and then that way you can start making movement. Because I think again, back to the point I said, I think kids, students, they they will follow our lead, and they don't want to be bored, and they want to be inspired. And so, seeing those things in action, I think, are really important.
So you're trying to do some new innovative ways, whether that's, how school looks and feels, whether that's the grading practices around competencies, which I want to talk more about. And I'm thinking about also what you just said, staying present. How do you convey conversations to help people maybe see things or think differently? And where my head's going is I'm thinking about like a local community. I'm thinking about parents. I'm thinking about the guardians of children who feel um, this pressure that we have to go through this checklist of a linear sequence so that my kid can get into said college, into said post secondary education, whatever that looks like. Therefore, I must have GPA, I must have national honors. And I'm saying these things, that these things are not inherently bad, so no one like
Right,
blow up on me.
exactly.
But what I'm saying is you're trying to do some new things, And you got to get those people on board. Sometimes the kids are like, yeah, let's roll. But we've also been trained as a society, our own personal journeys, like, oh, but I don't see this. I don't see an A on the report card. I don't see, whatever it might be. Um, how have you worked with that? Because this change isn't just you as a leader or staff, it's also the parents, it's also the community at large to understand it as well.
Yeah, holy smokes, Aaron! Everything you just said, we need to go to a bar and like just talk for
Yeah.
hours right now. So I'm a big believer, like in everything you just said, that there's definitely a box, and most of education lives inside that box, that linear path about grades and college and things like that. And one thing we like to say here is we don't just think outside the box, we act outside the box. So really trying to bust to bust out of these norms that um, that sort of definitely govern how we go. But parents and guardians, you're right, that's a challenge for them. They want to they don't want to hear like, oh yeah, we you're really focused on the present, but yeah, where's the A on the report card that's going to get into college? So but I think you can do both. I think you can have a really great classroom experiences and really great pedagogy that leads to those things, and even tie into being prepared for SATs and APs and those types of things, while letting go a little bit of the pressure of the box, because it's so pressurized. One thing we do here at this school, it's called New England Innovation Academy. So like we have to be innovative in the things we do. I always say it's not just our cool maker space, which is amazing, and kids are making cool things and being innovative. It's innovative in how we teach. It's innovative in how we operate. We have to always have that in our lens. Like I'm like a progressive teacher doing all different things in classes every day, and every once in a while, oh my God, am I being too traditional right now? In their days when that's perfectly great, and the direct instruction matters, and you need to do it, but then how do you also incorporate these other things? So but one way we do it is our college counseling office here. We are she Our college counselor, she often introduces herself as the director of college counseling or the director of what comes next,
Mm,
sort of normalizing that if your next step isn't college, we got you covered. We're going to support you. Where do you want to go? What is it you want to do? Do you want to do a gap year? Do you want to start to run your own business? What are these things where, so it's not frowned upon here? Again, in-house, yes. Even our constituents, our parents and guardians who come to New England Innovation Academy, they're still like, what? Wait a minute, where is you? so
right.
so we have to do both. I say it all the time, like we walk a fine line. Like, yes, we are college prep, but we're also what comes next prep. And so that's a challenge, right? I said working here is challenging and exciting. That's definitely a challenge. So but you got to work hard to try to support both of those groups, both those that want to do it. And I think it's doable.
Yeah.
It's worth the attempt to think about things that way, without a doubt, I would say.
Yeah. So as you're working with your staff, you're working with the professionals that are in your school, trying to wrap your head around the idea of innovation, right? And what are I'll call them the traditional things we need to maybe hold on to. Because not everything is bad,
No,
but we also know there is a lot of room for improvement or remixing systems, and you're trying to be innovative with these new ideas. What is like that workflow behind the scenes? Not that there's some like perfect recipe, like, oh, I pulled this recipe out, now we're innovative. But I think for a lot of people, they hear these things, they want to be innovative, but it's like, how, like, what's that actually look like, right? Like, we can talk about it, but then
yeah,
tomorrow I'm going to resort back. Like, so
yeah.
from your institution, how do you guys grapple with that? What are like some of your workflows, or not maybe even the process that you're having these conversations to figure out what to try, what to stick, what to discard, what to acknowledge? Boy, you know what, we tried and that just wasn't
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting what you just said, because it's true. Like it's even here when things get really busy, you see teachers fall back into I'm just gonna do it this way because I've always done it. It's easy. So the one sort of way I think about workflow in this type of capacity is I think it's cool to be a teacher. I think it's
Mm.
cool to do this work. So if you can think about something you want to do, and it might take a little bit of time now, but um, that's awesome. Like I want to be able to try these things, and if you can get them that they excite you too, then you're gonna want to do it. Um, it's like when we do in our competency system. It's pretty unique how we do it. I call it a mashup because it's not a true competency system. Somebody would look at it and say it's standard. Somebody else would look at it and say it's mastery. But again, we call it a competency-based system. But what I say a lot of times, especially with new staff that come on and you have to train them in this, obviously, is it might seem like a lot of work now, but it actually isn't. So that's the other thing too. A lot of times, some things like, oh my God, I have to learn this and it's going to be too much. And like, no, it actually isn't all that time. And that again, though, it's like the way we do it, I say like, oh, you get to think about how to do an assessment differently. That's exciting as a teacher. Picture the kids in the room. Like these kids right now, don't pull out the same quiz or project from 5 years ago. Look who's in the room now. And does it have to be tweaked a little bit? Yeah. Is that a lot of work? Actually, I don't think so. It could be, but is it worth the leap for these kids who are in the room right now? Like, absolutely. So I don't know. I sort of lean into like the why you're in this profession at all, and that should be inspiring to want to do some of these things and think about some of these things, and of course have resilience like you said when it doesn't work and have the humility to be like, wow, that didn't work, so
Yeah.
won't be doing that one tomorrow.
That's right. That's right. We have learned that that one we are not going to level up. Yeah.
And I will say, like, as a leader at the school, like I'm very supportive of those very things. So there's no well, I mean, there might, like you said, there's always fear, but I really aim to be very supportive of like, yeah, like try that. And if it doesn't work, it's okay. Oh, you don't want to, you want to change that unit even though this, do it. It's okay. I got your back. Like if it doesn't work, we'll figure it out together. That type of thing, rather than like, really trying to like don't get too risky, blah,
Mm.
blah, blah. So I sort of think that that's helpful. The support systems around these types of things are really important. So that's why I try to, like, as a leader, I try to do that as much as possible, like be supportive and be like, yep, look, that didn't work. It's okay. How can I help you move forward or come up with the next idea?
Yeah. So how do you keep that? How do you keep that fresh? I guess, for lack of a better terms, and it's one of those things where it sounds like you very much are giving the people the permission. But I've also been in lots of places. I think when I was a middle school educator, this was very much the case where we were given freedoms to try things. We were given the liberation to think about project-based learning and these authentic learning experiences. I don't even think we were even using that vocabulary at the time, to even like try new ways to help with the engagement of students. But then the more I think about it, there's like these invisible rules, right? Where they're like the system, and you have faculty that has been in the system or a district for a long time.
Yeah,
You can say these things, but they still feel like they can't. Like there's these rules that are not written on a code of conduct. They're not in the handbook. They're not anywhere, but they're not also going to touch it because there is this institutionalized invisible rule book that exists. How do you keep that from happening in your school over time, right, where people are still willing to take those risks? Because the downside for a lot of people is, I try something, it doesn't work, maybe I try something again, well, now all of a sudden maybe I'm a failure, maybe that I'm not creative, maybe I'm not, and like now we get this self-talk.
yeah,
We can't solve for everybody, but how do you stay out on that cutting edge of that? It's one thing when it's new, but when you're 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, eventually for you, 10 years down the road, how do you keep that going? I think that's the tough one. And maybe there isn't an answer yet. That's what you're trying to figure out.
yeah. I'm not sure what the answer is other than tapping into people's passions for the work they want to do. I think
Mm.
that's the most important thing. You know, in the way I view it, like, not that teaching, like, I don't want to say like teaching is a calling or anything like that, but if you want to do this job, that you want to do those things, right? So you got to keep tapping into that, making people feel that excitement about that, and help through when somebody fails like a failure because they tried something and it didn't work, those types of things. But you're right, the invisible rules, the invisible walls are very strong. It comes back to the box. It comes back to the way the system always has been. And that's why the courage is so important, and the support system. So that, like, again, I'm really a big believer in having support systems, having great conversation with colleagues, and that way you're not in it alone, because I think, and again, back to, like, I agree with you, like, there'd be some places where the tradition is what it is and the invisible rules are what they are. But again, it doesn't mean you can't make little tweaks. And literally, in my opinion, like, again, not to be hokey, like, butterfly effect, you make one little change, but it does matter. It might matter for that kid in the classroom that day. Or, the way I look at it, for this school. The other day I was saying something, I was like, we have to make this change and it's for the institution. And so
Mm.
let's get behind it and let's do it. And then let's hear if you don't think it's working, and then we'll figure it out from there. So it also means obviously having a lot of hard conversations sometimes with families, with people, with other administrators, those types of things. But what you need, a little excitement in your day, so
That's right.
but if you wanna break through the invisible rules and invisible walls, it does take either a small change or a big change.
Yeah. Earlier you made reference to AI, and I don't want to spend like forever on AI. Everybody's talking about it, but I've also read like in several places your mantra of, teach what cannot be Googled, which I think is something that a lot of us have tried to adhere to in our practices. And now with generative AI in the last few years, we have this as well. And I know you've got some different thoughts and ideas on that. Before maybe we unpack AI a little bit, thinking about teach what can't be Googleable or teach what can't be AI. I don't even know if
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
even a thing, but we're gonna go with it. What are some of those skills that you are hoping students leave your school with? I know we talked a little bit, about problem solving and critical
yeah.
thinking and persistence, but as you're looking through your grading mashup, you're having people look at their assessments. What are some of those skills that I think are probably even more important than ever before because of AI and all the things?
Yeah, I mean, AI is amazing. Like, what a tool. And in terms of, yeah, teach what can't be AI'd, which is almost nothing, right? But
Right.
except for human to human connection, in a classroom, say, about a cool topic or even a mundane topic, that AI can't do that. But also, I think one of the best things about school is making connections to things. That one person over here says this, and then another person says that, and that AI can't do that. It can't generate, from two very distinct individuals saying these things, and then all of a sudden that's in the room and people have to deal with it. So I think that is what's that's why, I just read an article, you've probably seen it, about the school that's all AI. They have no
Hmm.
teachers, it's just AI. And, like, all right, cool, yeah, you can learn that way. I learn plenty of things from AI. But it's those connections that come out of someone's brain and lived experience that are really sort of, again, back to, like, what can't be Googled or AI. It's like those types of things. How do we, as a teacher, though, we have to be, ready to work with those threads and support them, and be like, oh, I need to run with that, even if it means, oh, I'm not going to be able to cover this thing because that was actually authentic versus something we could just all do on AI or ChatGPT, that type of thing. So I think that, like, I'm a big believer in connection. I think that connection, like, both two forms of connection, like the double entendre, like the connection between humans, but also the connection between ideas that stem from individual people's minds. I think that is really interesting. And, our school, I've worked at boarding schools for like 20 of my 31 years. and having a room full of people from around the world in their different ideas, that you ChatGPT cannot capture that.
Sure.
So
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot, and I don't have the idea fully fleshed out, but I think back to when I used to have hair, and I would have to do a research paper for class, and you'd spend 3 or 4 days going down to the library, but that took forever to actually go to a physical card catalog, trying to find a book, then trying to go get the book, so you just did a lot of time just to be able to retrieve information. And I think a lot of classroom systems still kind of organize lessons and research projects along those lines.
yeah,
And as you were talking about it, it gets me excited because I'm thinking like, how can we expedite information retrieval faster? And now in those days, how do we create more discourse? How do we create more Socratic seminar? How do we create more opportunities where kids are not staring at screens, but staring at each other, dissecting the information? I do a lot of AI work, and I talk about it, this age of available answers. How do we move away from trying to help kids answer questions and start to question the answers? So
yeah,
is this valid? Is this what I want? Is this what I should think? And I just think classrooms are such a what a wonderful
yeah,
opportunity for that human connection that, again, I don't think it was intentional. We kind of lost sight of when everybody went one to one and all these computing platforms and personalized learning platforms. And uh, again, there's a time and place for some of it, but we've now have a room of 25 kids and they don't talk to each other. And like,
yeah.
here's an opportunity now we can get that back.
Yeah, and school can do that too, right? Like like you pick in picture, you go to the mall, a bunch of kids are on a table and they're on their phones. Like, okay, fine. But in school, you can curate that they are interacting in some ways. Like that, that doesn't happen in regular life. That's pretty cool. That's a really palpable aspect of school in terms of the social aspect of human connection. And the one thing too, I think as AI, humans, the human condition is meant to adapt, right? The ancient Greeks would have like one version of a book, right? They didn't have, they weren't publishing things. They had one version of like a text, and the town would take it and everyone would read it and memorize. They'd memorize it like that, right?
Hmm.
That was their skill. Over time, when publishing happened, we didn't need to do that. So we get to focus on other things. And it's just going to be the same thing with AI, right? We're going to figure out like, oh, we can use this tool for this, and then what does that free us up to do other than that? And I think that's another really cool opportunity for schools that we're just figuring it out right now, right?
Sure.
And it's like, when I look at, my 54 years, like the generation before is like, oh, TVs came out, people were like, oh my God, people are just watching the TV all the time. And then, you know, um, I would say for like cable TV came out. Oh my God, now people are just going to watch MTV and all that type of stuff. And then, as an English teacher, like Spark Notes came out. Oh my God, what are we going to do? Kids are never going to read. Like you just adapt. You adapt to these things like phones. Like, yep, but you know what? Phones are, everybody loves them, by the way. Like people are like, oh, phones are bad. Really? Then why does every single human love it? And everywhere I look, people are taking them out and checking things. That's cool. There's a ton of connection there. So then what do we do, particularly in school, to adapt to that? And what is it now that we can focus on that we didn't need to waste time on, like you were saying about the research project? AI can do this. Great. Okay, now what can we do with students that now that we have that time back? And maybe it's those human connections or other things or some sort of hands-on project or something that we don't have, that we now have gained time from, that we can use because of AI. So rather than yes, we have to manage AI, we have to manage use and all those types of things, but it's also an opportunity where like, yep, I had to make that PowerPoint. ChatGPT did it for me in 2 minutes. So now I have an hour back. What can I do with that that's actually productive for whatever it is that I might be interested in or what students are interested in?
Yeah, it's so funny. I was as you were talking, I was thinking about that wave, right? When TVs came on, and I haven't done it in a while, but it rekindled a thought where I used to have people read the first page of Neil Postman's book, Amusing Ourselves to Death, which is, I don't know, mid 80s, I think, when it came out. I don't remember off the top of my head, but it's basically his book talking about the corrosive nature of TVs and what television is going to do to the mind and brain and society. And I think we've been okay. Not that it wasn't like a important thing to process, but I have people read that page, and I'm like, "What do you think this is about?" Uh, oh, AI. Like, no, this is about television from 40 years ago, or whatever it means. And like we keep coming back to the whatever it might be that is, and we do navigate it. It doesn't mean that the feelings aren't real. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't have questions. We shouldn't have cautious optimism, but it just means like we have overcome time and time again. And sometimes we have
Yes.
hiccups and stuff, but how do we learn from that so we don't keep stubbing our toe the same way every single time? And I know some people will argue that AI is a different beast, but it's not necessarily an education thing. This is a societal implication, almost like a TV or the onset
Yeah.
of the internet. That does have education factors, but it's not just like, oh, here's this thing, go figure it out.
Yeah, humans have adapted. I'm blown away. Where was I? Just somewhere. Oh, I was in a town here in Massachusetts recently. There's just this massive old mill building, massive, and I was like, "What is that?" So I looked it up on my phone, like, which is amazing. I could look this up and find out the answer immediately. It was built in 1850, and I'm like, "How the hell did people do that back then? How did they
Yes.
build this massive, huge building?" And I'm like, you know what? People were doing their thing, right? The pyramids, every like we've adapted through time. We will get through AI, and hopefully with using it for good, and then using the time we gain from that for other good and other things that help us move humanity forward and interactions with each other forward. So I'm more hopeful rather um, than like, oh, it's going to be horrible. Like, I think it's a good tool. Do we need to manage it? Absolutely. But like you said, the same way Neil Postman was talking about TVs. One of my favorite quotations, by the way, is from Neil Postman. Like, the greatest tool a student can yield is asking questions. I
Mm.
think it's true. But again, back to that, like, yes, you could ask AI to generate a bunch of questions, but a student like in a room generating questions about something right there and then, like, that's an amazing tool that a student's using their brain to do. So anyway, that was just some Neil Postman love right there. We just
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I'm curious. I've been asking people some some version of this question because it's become a new personal interest of mine, but I'm finding that people are finding themselves interested as well in their journey. And so I think in this case, I'm intrigued by your workflow in terms of being a leader in an innovative space. So not that you have to like take me through every tool and thing that you use, but I like this question because I keep telling people, we now have at our fingertips all sorts of tools, software, hardware, phones, whatever it is that we want to leverage. They're all like these Lego bricks, and we can configure them into any sort of design that we want. But sometimes we like going to the store, and I like seeing what someone else has built, and that helps me inspire. I learn a new build technique. I learn a new way of seeing how the pieces could come together. So in your role as you're leading the school, helping with this innovation, helping stay with the times, mashing up scores, also trying to keep on top of everything, so you can continue to be that leader you want to be. What is some of your workflow? Like, what are some of these tools, processes that you find that help you sort the chaos or sort the brain and the new ideas and figure out what to do? Like, do you have some of those like go-to either tools or strategies or frameworks?
so literally ChatGPT is one of those amazing things that can do that for you. Like, we just did a big brainstorm session the other day, put all the pictures of the brainstorms into ChatGPT, organized for me. Thank you very much. Then you can move on. It's again back to that thing. So um and I think I don't know, like from the human level, I need to make sure it's not all encompassing. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
terms of my workflow, like I definitely wake up at 3 in the morning and can't get back to sleep a lot. And so I really have to think about how do I, thanks for all the tools that make things easier, but how do I manage my own sort of balanced life around that. Because again, back to the passion, like, so I'm passionate about these things, obviously, right? So like I wake up and I'm thinking about them and I feel that's great, but it's also not super healthy. So I just really try to be cognizant as much as possible about trying to keep my work hours what they are, and trying to detach from. I love vinyl records, right? So I'll
Mm,
listen to some music and just try to be there. And like, if I go to my daughter's field hockey game, that I'm not looking at my phone, those types of things. Um, but then, so part of my workflow is like when I show up, like I am on,
mm,
I'm ready to go. But the other thing in terms of like tools, so we partnered with a program called Otis. It's a learning management and gradebook system, and they're amazing. It's literally the best customer service of any education platform I've ever been a part of. And so because we have a unique competency-based system, we use Google Classroom for our like day to day, and Google Classroom can't handle our competency system like we have the way we do it. And this company Otis does. They cater to what we want, and they're flexible to, oh my god, I just changed this, can you fix that? They do it. It's little things like that. So it's back to like the part, like how you have to collaborate with people who are like-minded. Like this company is one where I would say like they help a lot. Like I don't have to worry about that, because we found this program. They're awesome, and I know I don't have to fret. Like if anything happens, like they'll figure it out and we'll work
mm.
together and it'll be easy. So those things I feel like in terms of workflow are helpful, like the connecting with partners that get what it is you're doing, what at your school, whatever your school's thing is.
I love that. I want to be respectful of your time here, so I think of just one last question that I have, and then I'll make sure if there's any last parting thoughts that you have before people can track down and find out all the work that you're doing, Camp. As I'm thinking about future learners, our students that are in my state, they are in classrooms this week. In other states, they've already started. Other places, they'll be starting soon. We've got these future contributing community members, whatever community that is, local or global. I'm thinking about the future of education. I'm thinking about all the stuff we've talked about, and bring it all back to, okay, so what's tangible, right? So an educator is listening to this and they're in whatever system they're in, what's a one small, to use some of your words, ruckus that they could make tomorrow to get started? We've talked a lot, big ideas, but we've also talked about the importance of finding those quick wins or those little spaces to start. What's a suggestion for someone that's motivated hearing you and your ideas and going, okay, I'm ready to dab my toe in and do something small, my little small ruckus.
Yeah, I think it's if you're a teacher, you picture your classroom, picture the kids in the room, okay? And what what is something that you can do that will vibe with a couple kids that you haven't always done, and it's something that, and again, you try it and maybe a bunch of other kids like it too, or you're confident in it, those types of things. I'm a like again back to like the present tense thing, like the students in the room today, what do they need? What, like, because we always think as teachers, like, what I need is I need to grind through this material, I need to teach you these things, right? So what do they need?
Hmm.
And if you can look at that and then adopt something, might be a small adaptation, like instead of instead of having the discussion about the novel today, we're going to um, do pick up a look look up a picture and that you feel like represents your reading last night and put it on the wall. Then we do a gallery walk, like a little thing. It could be like a 10-minute thing. Anything like that to break the momentum, to break that normal flow that might just again re-energize the normal flow. So
Right.
that's the way I like to think about it. That's back when I when I said, like, sometimes when I think like, oh my God, am I being too traditional? It's like those, a lot of traditional things are great, as we talked about. Like, not like, but what are the things that a 2025 adolescent or young student needs to be experiencing in a room?
Mm. Yeah, it's so true. I always like to tell people, I just want to help you add some more tools in your toolbox. You already have a lot, and maybe we just try the tools in different ways. We've
Yes,
always
yes,
used the hammer on the nail. Why not try the screwdriver? Like, why not? We know the screwdriver works. We know a nail works. It maybe not be the most effective, but maybe it's just enough for us to spark a new curiosity, and
yes,
just I like how you phrase that. I think for a lot of people, when we hear words like innovation, we hear words like future ready, or all the things
yeah.
that are the pressures, it feels so big. And I think we have to sometimes just like get back to the ground level and go, it's a series of small little things, right? A series of these little like non-linear wins that can help move in new directions. So completely love that
Yeah, yeah, like
advice.
at our school, we talk about innovation versus invention, right? Invention is
Mm,
something totally new. Innovation is taking something you already do and making it better. So that might be that, like you said, all the tools, you just tweak the tool you have right now. Like,
yeah,
so, you know what I mean? That's innovation. Like, just taking what already exists and making it better. Doesn't have to be this huge thing. It can be small.
I love it. I love it. It's so good. Cam, this is actually the conversation I think I needed. To get my juices back flowing, as you get back into learning all the systems, trying to figure out all the things, all the cards in the deck to kind of figure out what hand to make next. And you definitely provided me a lot of inspiration, good reminders on a lot of things, and definitely some new thoughts for me to consider, and a really good Neil Postman quote that I need to start using more. People want to learn more about you and your school and your work. They know by now the drill. It'll all be in the show notes. But if they're walking their dog or at a red light and they want to get started now, where are some of the best places for people to learn more about your ideas and all that you got going on?
So probably the NEIA, that's what we call New England Innovation Academy. We call it NEIA. NEIA's website. I'm on LinkedIn. You can email me at any time. Like, yeah, because I can have these, as you can tell, and I think you're the same way. I could have these conversations anytime about anybody needs it. Like, because like you said it about me, but like like I've inspired and learned a ton from you in our time together. So I'm just so appreciative. And again, back to the, like, what can you do? Like, this is a love of learning that we want to model for students, and that's what we want to have for them.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Well, I'm glad it was a win-win all around. And I think it's modeling what we want in classrooms, right? This opportunity to engage in conversation and see what pieces and how we fit it together and where that might take us. And, we're coming into this conversation from vast life experiences and acquired knowledge and leveraging tools like chat gpt, and here we are, we can have conversations that are just going to springboard us forward into to new thoughts and ideas. So Camp, this has been fantastic. I appreciate your time. I wish you so much success on another school year, and I'm really excited for more people to find your work, follow your work in your school, and see what in the world you got going on, not just now, but also heading to the future. So thanks for making time today.
All right, thanks so much, Aaron, and I'm so glad we're connected, and we will stay connected now.
That's right. That's right. Definitely, without a doubt.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah.
Chaos. Woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning, chilling with coffee mugs, me and coffee chugs, talking education all across the nation, pushing boundaries, thinking innovation. Chaos.